Hey everybody, how's it going? Today I wanted to read a YouTube comment that I got. I get it pretty often, and I've done a video on this YouTube comment on my other channel at one point, but I just wanted to cover it again on this channel. It says, maybe you're not a millionaire because you're honest and decent and don't rip people off to get rich. I want to push back a little bit against that because it's something that is really easy to fall into. It's easy to fall into the trap that the reason that good things don't happen to you is because you're a good person, or it's really easy to fall into the trap that the reason that something you did failed is not because of the actual decisions you made, but it failed simply because you're not evil enough. So I've done numerous videos on my old business, the many mistakes that I made with several of my old businesses, and why they failed. When I look back at my old supply company, which sought to sell LCD screens and batteries and so on and so forth, parts that were difficult to find in good quality for MacBooks and other machines 11 years ago, when I think about why that company failed, the three things that are most obvious to me today were A, the fact that I bought a bunch of parts that I thought would have a high resale demand based on current demand that immediately dropped in demand the moment I bought 500 or 600 of them. B, my desire to buy those parts in higher quantities to get better prices because I thought that that way I would be able to corner the market, make more money per screen while charging less than everybody else, and establish myself as a larger player. And C, when I was so busy focusing on all these other parts that I started selling, because I was greedy and I wanted to make more money right now rather than wait until I had built up the infrastructure that would allow me to do it properly, I was not able to realize until it was too late that my website, after being upgraded, was not capturing people's payments. It was only authorizing it and then refunding them several days later, causing me to lose about $30,000 over the course of a few months, which took me several months to get back about 60% of the money, by which point it was too late. The company was already going psh, psh. So did I do good things with that company that I think were honest and worthwhile? Yes. I paid $15 an hour to several employees of that company that were doing really low-level work, like literally just packaging boxes and stuff like that. This is back around 9 years ago, back when $15 an hour was actually worth something. Not today, where $15 an hour is kind of like the $6 an hour that I was getting when I started working at Model Sporting. Because back then, $15 an hour actually meant something. You know, I gave people paid sick leave, even if they were part-time. If you bought a part from me, I actually paid someone to pre-test it to ensure no dead pixels before it was sent out, even when we were selling thousands of screens a day. I would give you an overnight package. If you had an RMA or something didn't work, I would overnight the replacement with a label in the box to send back the old one before you sent back the old one. I treated the customers the way I wanted to be treated, even when the competition was saying, if it's less than 10 pixels, leave us alone. And yeah, if it's broken, you got to send it back at your expense and wait for us to process it. Did I do good things? Yes. Did those good things I did cost money? Yes. Did it take away from my net profit? Absolutely. Is it easy for me to preserve my ego and save my ego and blunt the miserable pain of self-inflicted failure by cherry-picking the things that make me sound good as the reasons that I failed? Absolutely. Am I going to do it? No, because reality. The things that I did that were good cost the company this much money, and the things that I did that were stupid cost the company this much money. It wasn't a question of moral versus immoral. There's not any of that stuff. What it was a question of was stupidity versus sensibility. And I made stupid decisions. Those stupid decisions resulted in it crashing when I could have, if I played my cards right, been a millionaire by now if I ran that company properly. The reason that I say this is because it is incredibly, incredibly tempting to tell yourself that the reason that you have failed is because you're a good person, and the reason other people succeed is because they're evil. I imagine if succeeding were as easy as simply choosing to be evil, that you'd have a lot more successful people at the world if it was just something tells me from my everyday experiences that we don't have this overflow of incredibly virtuous people in the world. And this is something that I carry into virtually everything that I do. I'm always looking at my motivations for why I did the things that I did, and I'm always assuming the worst of them, even if that's not even more than 1% of the overall story. With my current business, do I pay people over average repair industry standard wages because I'm a good person and I care about my employees sharing in my success and I want them to have good lives? Or do I pay them what I pay them because I figure they're not going to put up with the standards that I put in front of them unless I give them that amount of money, and that I won't be able to actually demand it from them if I don't pay them? Do I fight for right to repair because I think it's going to help hundreds of thousands of millions of people repair their devices and bring our culture back to a better time? Or do I do it because it'll help my own business and bottom line and allow me to make some more money? Do I create the videos that I create because I want to teach people who started out where I was, who couldn't figure out how any of this stuff worked, was pulling their hair out saying, why is there no information on how to do this? Do I want to help out past me and allow people that started out the way I started out, broke and dependent, to become financially independent and happy? Or do I do it to promote my own business and, frankly, just have something to do during the otherwise really boring time of sitting down in a room for 8 to 12 hours a day fixing boards back when I was the only one doing it at the company? When I make lobbying trips for Right to Repair, am I there because I really want to get Right to Repair passed? Or do I just kind of enjoy dunking on lobbyists, getting the audience to and the senators to clap at how stupid something that the opposition lobbyist said was?
But the reality is that some of the people that you're hearing from today greatly seek to profit off of this legislation being passed. This legislation has been filed in over 21 states, and no state has passed this legislation, and that's for a reason.
Before I get started, I think it's important to address a point that Mrs. Fisher just brought up, which is that there are many people that are seeking to profit from this legislation, and I agree that it's an important point. I think it's important to look at who paid to be here today versus who is being paid to be here today when looking at who is opposing the legislation and who is in favor of that legislation. The last excuse that I heard was, this has been denied in every state, why Boston? Why Massachusetts? Wouldn't that have been a great attitude to have 250 years ago? That's it.
Thank you for your testimony.
There are many reasons for why we do the things that we do. Some of them are virtuous, some of them are altruistic, some of them are self-serving, some of them are self-aggrandizing, some of them are self-interested, and some of them are just plain mean. And I think it's really important to include all of those reasons in why we do anything. Here's why I think it's actually a healthy outlook to assume that everything I'm doing is being done for an evil reason, not a virtuous one. If I assume that what I'm doing is in the pursuit of a noble, kind, altruistic goal, then virtually anything I do in pursuit of that goal is justifiable. However, if what I'm doing is based on pure greed, then I really have to have a conversation with myself where I go, yeah, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. Because if I'm just doing something to make a little bit extra money, but it's a little bit grimy, a little bit dirty, maybe you do it. But if it's a lot grimy and you know you're not hiding it from yourself, you're doing it to make more money, it's, dude, you can't do that. No, just no. Whereas if I fool myself into this idea that what I'm doing is I'm doing it solely for virtuous means, solely because it's going to help millions of people in the world, it's the only reason I would ever conceive to do that, then there's absolutely no reason to not do almost any underhanded, slimy shit in the short run in order to help millions of people in the long run. Only a couple of people have to die now, but millions of people will be happy in this new great world that you're creating. Some of the worst evil crimes against humanity that have occurred were done by people that thought that they were doing great, beautiful things for the world, that deluded themselves into the bullshit, self-aggrandizing, narcissistic story that they were a great human being, when in reality that they were a flawed, insecure, stressed out, anxious, scared, self-interested person, same way the rest of us are. So I'm always assuming that the reason that I do the things that I do, the reason I say the things that I say, the reason for anything, is because I'm not a good person. Now, to be clear, this does not mean that I look in the mirror every day and have negative self-talk. I don't look in the mirror and say, I am a piece of shit. Lewis, you are a bad person. I don't do that. I don't have a negative self-image. I don't have this negative self-talk where I'm constantly telling myself you're an evil piece of shit. I try to believe that I am a good human being. But at the same time, I also don't try to lie to myself about the fact that I am a human being, just like every other human being who has a wide range of emotions, a wide range of needs, a wide range of weaknesses, temptations, and failings, like everybody on planet Earth, and that these motivate my decision-making process. And oftentimes I may be wrong. Maybe with what I do, 99% of it is for good reasons and 1% is selfish reasons. I don't care. I assume the worst because by assuming that, it kind of serves as a check against me actually going ahead and doing things that are really bad and really evil. And the second reason I do this is because it actually encourages me to continue moving forward. If I told myself that the reason that my first business failed, the reason that I wasn't a millionaire was because I was a good person and I didn't rip people off and I'm honest and decent, why would you want to live in that world? Why would you want to be a part of that world? Why would you want to wake up out of bed in the morning if that was the story? Even if that's true, I don't want to believe it. I don't want to buy into that. I wouldn't get out of bed in the morning. I wouldn't try. I wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't create anything. There'd be no point in bothering. So after that business failed, I would not have went on to, pick myself up and dust myself off and try to make this repair business that that was still going, that I started from shit, work. And I wouldn't have tried getting the store because during a lot of the time that a lot of that stuff was happening, this is about a few months before I got that store at 186 First Avenue. I wouldn't have moved into that place. I wouldn't have bothered. I wouldn't have tried to do board repair. I wouldn't have filmed it. I wouldn't have hired Steve and the other people that I hired. And I wouldn't have kept working every single day towards creating a better business because I would have believed that if you're a good person, that you get screwed. By believing that it had to do with the things that I did that were wrong, I now put myself in a position where, okay, well, if it was me, if it was the fact that I did something that was wrong, well, I can change that. So let's see what happens if I start over. And I had the motivation that I did to do the things that I did. If being an honest and decent and good person resulted in me getting fucked, why would I make videos that ever show anybody how to do what I do? Why wouldn't I just cut out 50% of the video that actually tells you at home following along how I figured this out and just leave in the beginning where it doesn't work, in the middle where I do this, that, the other, and then the end where it's like, look, it works. Go to rossmangroup.com and give me your money. I wouldn't bother. I wouldn't want to do good things anymore because I believe that the world is actually a bad place. And that's not a healthy way to see the world. And it creates a sense of nihilism that would have prevented me from ever doing anything worthwhile. I know because I fell into that trap before. I fell into the idea that the reason that I have not been successful is because I was honest and decent. And yeah, does it hurt that I have to look at myself and check, does it hurt? Like I pointed out in that iCrack video where I see that, I can't get a freaking business loan to save my life, whereas someone who can't do component level repair gets bought out by an insurance company and is now a multi-millionaire that can retire in his early 30s and never have to work again. Sure, it sucks. I'm not going to look at that and say that it's not tempting to say the reason that I'm not the reason that he has that and I don't is because I'm honest and decent. Like, no, there's a bunch of things that have to go into it. Maybe you know the right people and I don't. Maybe a little bit of it is luck. Maybe it's how we chose to structure our business models. Maybe a lot of it is how I spent several years fucking around with an unsustainable business model because I was greedy in the wrong direction. I was greedy the same way that he may have been greedy, but the way that I structured my greed in a way that made no sense. Trying to corner the market for these two obscure parts and then buying a bunch of them in the hopes that I could sell it cheaper than everybody else and the hopes that that would mean that they would not be selling it anymore so that would cost them business and then give me a leg up and allow me to intrude into a market that other people had been in for 10 years before me, which was patently insane. Even if everybody in the industry hated those other companies that were doing what they were doing, doesn't mean that I'm going to be able to break into it immediately, that there's this magic shortcut I can do. But I did. I made many stupid decisions. Those are not the only 2 or 3 stupid things that I did. There were a number of things that I did that were beyond idiotic that resulted in me being at a point where I can say I've been in business for 12 years and I'm not a millionaire. Not even a half millionaire. And it is what it is. And I'm not going to pat myself on the back and say that the reason that is what it is because I'm a great human being. People that will tell themselves that they're great human beings, they're virtuous, unlike everybody else, most likely they've never actually been in these situations where there was a choice to be made. I find it difficult to believe that 99% of the people on planet Earth that are not successful, that have actually failed, would not choose to be even the tiniest bit evil if given the chance or the opportunity to be evil. And the reality is that while being evil and sociopathic may certainly be necessary to be one of today's modern corporate CEOs in our current economic reality, like being a little bit sociopathic may be what's needed to get full shareholder returns in the short term, it doesn't mean that being successful in every aspect of business requires that you just give up all of your morals and ethics and be evil. Oh, there's another comment I got, which is that honest conversations with customers don't maximize profits and are therefore discouraged by most large companies. And I replied that I moved into the East Village in 2012. A few years later, the little laptop shop on Clinton Street, Digital Society on Broadway, Cable Doctor on East 14th Street, all closed within blocks of me. Shortly after that, Dr. Brendan closed and sold his business for pennies on the dollar to someone else, and TechServe is also gone. I'm still here, and I quadrupled my employee count and moved to a space that's 4 times the size. So I said there is money in being trustworthy. I'm not smart, educated, talented, or capable. This isn't a revolutionary strategy or a difficult one. It's a way to make money. And like, even when it comes to that, am I honest with my customers? Because I actually believe that I am this genuinely amazing person, that's just honest because I was born virtuous and different from everybody else? Or am I honest because I realize that I will actually make more money? If I enter a dishonest industry as an honest person, now I have something that separates me and sets me apart. So as someone who doesn't understand traditional advertising, who doesn't understand traditional networking and traditional socialization, who's not good at marketing, this is a way for me to cheat my way into marketing by actually getting my customers to do it for me. When I perform something for a customer for $100 or $200 that everybody else would be $1,000, and I show them exactly how I did it, that person's going to tell 100 people, don't go to anybody but him. To the point where even if someone else is 20% cheaper than me, they'll say, fuck it, it's not worth shopping around. Everybody told me to go to you. I'm going to go to you. Like, am I honest because I'm a good person? Or am I honest because it's actually a good marketing strategy? I always do this with everything, with decisions I make in my relationships, with decisions that I make with my business, with decisions that I make with my hobbies, and I try to communicate them as I'm making those decisions. I communicate this with my customer. I communicate this with the women that I date. I communicate this with the people that I work with. I try to communicate this all the time because I don't want to fall into a world of cotton candy and fairy dust, of lies and bullshit, where people, because again, I'm probably repeating myself at this point, but I strongly believe that the worst crap that people have ever done is not because they were trying to do something evil. It's because they convinced themselves that they were on the good team. They were on the good side. And when you're on the good side, anything you do is worth doing in pursuit of a virtuous goal. So who cares about the people that we harm in the meantime? We're doing something good. That's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. I'll see you all in the next video. Sorry for the camera positioning, because the camera positioning cuts off Mr. Clinton's head here. So I'll pick him up so that you could see the full body of the Mr. Clinton cat. This is Clinton. This is my kitty. His name is Mr. Clinton. He's pissed off because I picked him up, so he's gonna coil like a spring. Or not. He actually, usually when I pick him up, he coils and jumps off as fast as he can. But this time he just kind of sat in the chair. I think he's getting old. When I play with him with his toys, he's still fast when he's chasing stuff or chasing the other cat, or wants to do he does his sprints around the apartment. He actually exercises. You'll see him sprint at a certain time, and he'll go from one side to the other and just kind of race himself. But when I'm playing with him with little toys, he really can't see them anymore. And like, he'll start feeling around to try to see where it is, even when I stop it in front of him. So I'm kind of wondering if his eyesight is going. Poor little Clinton. He was born around August or September of 2009, so he's getting pretty old now for a kitty. I'm sorry your eyesight is going, little Clinton. Who's my Clinton? Who's my Clinton cat? You're my Clinton cat. Who's a good boy? Hey, see you later.